I just want to start off by saying that normally I would be in much nicer clothes for a speech, but since we are working on sanding and painting, and those are both really messy processes, I am wearing my painting clothes so that I don't ruin one of my 5 good pairs of clothes. But let's get right into it. Have you ever wanted your wooden furniture to be a different color, but you didn't really know how to go about painting it? Maybe you've been in a situation where you can't really take your furniture outside, or maybe you don't have a garage or a proper workspace to really paint or sand in. Maybe you're scared to paint it because you've seen painted wooden furniture and seen how those little black lines can stick out from underneath the paint and it makes it look antique. If you've ever been in a situation like this, then you can relate to my situation now, and I'm going to show you how I handle it and how you can handle it in the future. I'm going to be walking you through all of the steps, including the setup, the sanding, and the actual painting of the furniture to show you how to make it look nice and how to do it indoors. So the first thing that we're going to go over is the setup. I have some plastic wrap laid down on my floor, and I really suggest doing that because otherwise you risk getting a lot of paint on your floor and it can be hard to clean up. I also recommend it for the sanding process as well. I have a little cover on my couch right here that is reusable so I can take it off and wash it later. And I mainly have that for the sanding process because it does get pretty dusty. So you want to cover anything that you don't want getting really dusty or that isn't easily cleanable. If you have a table or something, it's pretty easy to wipe down, but a couch is a lot harder. So I do recommend covering that stuff and putting down some plastic wrap. The next thing you want to do is you just want to prep your furniture by just giving it a quick wipe down. I just have a little disinfectant cloth and I'm just going to wipe it down real quick. And then I'm going to dry it off with a cloth, just a dry cloth. Now you don't want to scrub it and make sure that it's perfect, but you do want to make sure that it doesn't have any dust or residue on it so that the sanding process is a lot easier. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So the next thing that you want to do is you want to set up your sander. So if you're on a budget, you can just get some sandpaper from Walmart and just kind of sand it with your hand. But it's going to take a lot longer and it's really hard on your hands. So I did get an actual sander from Walmart. It's just a little one. I don't think it was too expensive. It has a little bag on the back. This is just the one that my dad recommended for me because I'm on a budget and I'm not going to use it very much. It's a small one. It's very easy to use. You just plug it in and set it up. My dad did have to explain to me over the phone how to set it up because the instructions were a little confusing. My dad does a lot of at-home projects and he also helps his father-in-law with his painting business, so he knows a lot about this stuff. I pretty much just learned from watching him growing up how to sand and how to do this stuff. So I've never really done it myself until last week, but that just shows how easy it can be. So you want to get your sandpaper, and the first one you want to use is the 80P, which is just a medium grit sandpaper. That's pretty much going to do the heavy lifting of getting this top layer of varnish. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but the stain, you want to get that off so that your paint can stick better. And that's what this grit of sandpaper will do. So all you do is you use this little tool and it has these pokes in it. I don't know if you can see them. And you just poke it through the sandpaper to make it line up with the holes that are right here. And then you just lift these little metal clamps up and tuck your sandpaper into the metal clamps on the top and bottom. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. And then you're gonna pull your metal clamp down and that tightens it onto the sandpaper. And you just do that on both sides. It's nothing too difficult. So now your sandpaper or your sander is all set up and ready to go. Your furniture is ready to be sanded and you have your workspace set up. So it is officially time to start sanding. As I said before, you want to use your 80P grit first. This is what my dad recommended to me, so it's what I'm doing. But like I said, that medium grit is going to really work on tearing up this varnish so that your paint will stick better. And then when you go in with the higher grit, the fine grit sandpaper, it's going to buff it so that it's kind of just smoother. So this is going to be kind of loud. I'm not going to be able to talk while I'm using it, but all I'm going to do, and I'm just going to do a little portion. All I'm going to do is just apply some pressure and just go in little circular motions, up and down motions, side to side. I'm really just gonna kind of go for it, and that's all you really have to do. You just kind of do what feels right. Like, there's no wrong way to sand when all you're doing is sanding to get this stuff off. This particular project doesn't have to be sanded a certain way. You just kind of do it until you feel like it's done right. So, before I sand, I'm going to put on my safety glasses. I also recommend wearing safety glasses because sanding will get that sawdust out into the air and you don't want to get it in your eyes. It hurts. So, I'm going to go ahead and turn this on and do just a little portion right here. Actually, I'm going to do this portion just under it because I did do this earlier, so I'm going to do this little portion right here, just so you can see it. So that's all you do. And then you take a damp cloth. You don't want it to be super wet or anything. I'm personally going to just use this disinfectant wipe again because it's pretty dried out. It's not very wet. You just want to use it enough to pick up that dust. You don't want it super wet. You just want it wet enough to pick up that extra dust. But as you can see, there's still a discoloration. That is from getting that top layer of varnish off. So this is I'm just going in with this cloth to dry it off so it's not wet for the second round of sanding. You can do that, or you can just let it dry by itself. But as you can see, there's some little spaces where the coloring came up completely. But most of this is just kind of a duller, not shiny color, and that's because we got that top layer off. So now you just want to pop off that 80p, and you're going to put on your 120p. Into the sander, and you're just going to do it the exact same way you did with the 80p. You're just lifting up the metal clamps and then putting them right back down. Make sure this is dry, which it is, and you're just going to go in with this the same way you went in with the other one, and you're basically just like buffing it at this point. So I'm just going to do that right now. So that finer grit really did a lot at kind of getting up that extra layer as well. And I'm just going to go in with the disinfectant wipe again. It doesn't have, the higher grit is like almost smoother sandpaper, so it's not like digging at it as much as the higher or the lower grit of sandpaper was before. So it's kind of smoothing it more than it's digging at it. So I'm just going to wipe that off and dry it again. And then what you want to do is you want to get your paint. My grandpa, or my dad's father-in-law, my step-grandpa, recommended using acrylic paint. I said that I didn't want it to peel off or have that like sticky feeling. Like sometimes when you touch dry paint, it's kind of sticky. I said that I didn't want mine to have that. And so he recommended that I use an acrylic paint. And so that's what we're going to be using. And I'm just going to put a little bit into a red Solo cup. I'm on a budget, and like I said, don't really know how to paint. So we're just going to go through. And you want to do thin coats. You want to do a bunch of thin coats instead of just a couple thick ones. So I'm just going to go through and really spread it out. And I mean, it's not going to do a lot of coverage on that first coat or even on the second one. I had a bookshelf that was a lot darker than this particular piece of furniture, and it took me about 6 coats to get it to really stick on there and look like it came like that. But yeah, you just want to do some really thin coats, and you want to let it dry in between and really get it spread out. And then after it dries, you can go in with more coats. But you just want to do a lot of thin coats. And yeah, that's it. You just want to make sure you set up properly, you do the sanding, and then you go in with your thin coats. Don't worry if you're not experienced. I wasn't either until last week. I am going to take a little extra time just to show you. That's the headboard that I just did a few days ago. And it was the same color as this. So it can work really well. It's really easy, and you can do it indoors as long as you're being careful and setting up properly and doing everything how you should. So yeah, that's all, and good luck.